Welcome. My name is Katibe Simone. I'm a soul evolution coach. My mission is to help you evolve into your best life. I'm also a speaker, workshop facilitator, author, and advanced channeler of light beings. To date, since my spiritual awakening in the spring of 2009, I have channeled over 50 light beings who exist in other dimensional frequencies than the earthly plane. I've shared their inspirational channeled messages on my blog, also on my Facebook. What I've done since my spiritual awakening in 2009 is I shifted my life. The spiritual awakening I experienced was extraordinary and sudden, and I didn't know that it was coming. I started on a plan of self-improvement to correct what I felt were personality weaknesses, to become more loving, flexible, kind, compassionate, and wise. And when I embarked on that program, it turned unexpectedly into a spiritual awakening. From that, my inner base vibration was raised. I became more conscious, lucid, and developed my extrasensory perceptions or psychic senses. That's how I learned I could channel. I learned I could hear words, phrases, and paragraphs in my mind, in my own thought voice. This telepathy prior to this time was not developed at all, but after my spiritual awakening, it did come forth. I share that because it gives me a unique perspective on my teachings. I've heard numerous times since my spiritual awakening that I am an oracle, a messenger. From these channeled messages I received, I learned a lot about how high-level intelligent beings, what they value and what is important to them. And that has motivated me to create my own series of teachings based on these channelings to date. Today I'm going to share 2 out-of-bodies I had recently. I've been guided to share and chronicle what I know. I've been guided to teach what I learned and how I learned it, to help my fellow brother and sister. That is my soul function. I have heard many times telepathically in my own thought voice, in my mind, that I am a teacher. I've heard this term even in different languages. I've heard the term Tenzin, Tenzin, which means teacher, and also Oman, Oman. So it's very clear to me that I'm meant to share what I have learned and I'm telepathically hearing to help other human beings evolve. This video is one of many as part of my video blog chronicles. As a result of my spiritual awakening in 2009, my sleep state changed quite a bit. I became a lucid dreamer, which means I'm able to recall details during my dream time. I believe everyone has out-of-body experiences naturally and spontaneously during their sleep state, when their mind is relaxed and their egos are no longer in full throttle. This allows a level of our consciousness to exit the physical body and travel to other dimensional realities that vibrate at frequencies different than the earthly plane. This is why many of us are not available to, are not able to be aware of these other dimensional realms during our waking state, because their vibration is higher than the earthly plane. Right now, we exist on the earthly 3D, three-dimensional plane of reality, but there are an infinite number of realities. These realms can be accessed in altered states of consciousness for most human beings, such as in your sleep state, or also in deeper states of meditation. I experience my out-of-bodies spontaneously. I do not actively work to initiate an out-of-body. I've heard telepathically that my spirit is a navigator. I interpreted that to mean that my spirit is another level of my consciousness, different than my waking state. We exist on many levels of consciousness or dimensions. That's why I refer many times in my teachings to human beings being multi-dimensional beings. We are so much more than we are in this tangible state where we can see, feel, hear, and even smell each other. We exist on many levels of consciousness, and we do this as part of our, and I'm hearing the word telepathically, perpetual evolvement. That's why we all voluntarily incarnated on this planet Earth to spiritually evolve, to raise our vibration. Another way to put it in a term that is used in many spiritual and metaphysical studies is when we raise our vibration, we actually ascending to the higher realms. I do feel as a result of my spiritual awakening, I have ascended to another dimensional frequency, which is why I'm able to hear light beings' communications to me telepathically. I've heard telepathically many times that I operate on multiple frequencies. I've also heard telepathically that I'm nocturnal, which is why I am a lucid out-of-body experiencer. Because I've been guided to chronicle and share my out-of-bodies to help others learn more about this type of experience that we all naturally have, it is just that many of us don't recall it. And I feel this is because it is a safety mechanism built within our psychology and physiology. The universe only gives us what we can handle. If you have a very stressful day-to-day life, if you're not feeling physically well and experiencing disease or other health conditions, if you are grieving, if you're in a dysfunctional family and there's a lot of stress and anxiety, let's just say, or if you're addicted to drugs, or one of your family members is, or you're very concerned about money and your basic physical needs, such as housing, food on the table, more often than not, you're not going to be a lucid dreamer. You have way difficult challenges that lie ahead of you and that you are currently experiencing, and the universe does not want to overwhelm you. The universe does not want to overwhelm your nervous system. I believe and I feel in order to have lucid out-of-bodies, your day-to-day normal life needs to be pretty stable. It needs to be centered. And you can't be obsessed or worrying constantly about money or where you're going to live or your relationships or your health, etc. And that is the type of life I do have. And I believe that has, and I'm hearing the word, liberated me to have these out-of-body experiences. I'm only given what I can handle, and I can handle this. And my spirit is the navigator. It determines the destinations. As I shared earlier, there are infinite number of dimensions. And I'm hearing the word cosmos, in the cosmos. How does one determine where you're going to go? And I would say it would be your spirit unless it's your conscious self who has an idea or a motivation to go to a certain type of dimensional reality. To be honest with you, I haven't had much success when I, on a conscious level, wanted to go to a specific dimensional reality. For example, I want to visit one of my past lives. I don't know which past lives. I've heard telepathically and received bits and pieces of some of my past lives. I've heard telepathically that I was a minister in a past life. I heard telepathically that I was a Black man in a wheelchair in a past life. I did one exercise about 4 or 5 years ago before going to bed, and I just kept repeating that I want to go to a past life. I kept saying this to myself in my mind. That was my goal. That was my focus. I did this for about a few minutes straight. And then to my surprise, when I had paused, I telepathically heard a voice in my own thought voice say to me, yes, but you may get upset. That really affected me. And I didn't want to get upset, so I kind of retracted my objective of going to a past life. I guess I could have been more clear and said, let me go to a past life, which was one of ease or one of happiness and joy and good memories. But I didn't do that. The telepathy that I received simply said that I might get upset if I went to a past life. So after that exercise, I did stop trying. I found it laborious for me to determine my own destination. And because I know there's infinite number of dimensional realms, I really don't know which one to choose. I know Shambhala is a very special dimensional realm of high vibration, and that's where the Ascended Masters exist. A few times I have stated that intention telepathically before sleep that I want to visit Shambhala. But to date, I have not had that experience. Because it is such a high vibrational dimension, I feel that my inner vibration is not at that level, so the universe is not going to allow a low vibrational being to go into an accelerated, advanced dimensional realm for safety, security, and I'm hearing it's precautionary. Okay, so today I'm going to share 2 out-of-bodies that I had. One of them occurred this morning, and it ended before 1:30 a.m. And today is July 30th, 2019. And the other one occurred on July 27th, 2019, just a few days ago on a Saturday. Today is Tuesday. I'm going to go ahead and talk about my Saturday out-of-body experience. I became lucid when I was sleeping at nighttime in my bed to find myself in a basement area. When I say I became lucid, it means that I started remembering details of the out-of-body. I don't remember the exit out of my physical body or the lift off from my out-of-body. I didn't look back and view my physical body sleeping. I know some out-of-body projectors do like to do that exercise. I rarely have been able to do that for whatever reason, and it could be probably for lack of practice and intentionality and will to do so. I've never had an out-of-body where I exited a level of my consciousness has exited my physical body, and I was aware enough where I would turn around and see my physical body sleeping in the bed. The few times that I had something similar to that, that was only maybe 2 or 3 times since 2009, over a period of 100 out-of-bodies, when I feel like I lifted out and I was floating toward the ceiling of my bedroom, and I looked back And I looked back into the bed, and my physical body actually wasn't even in the bed. So I have a feeling that I had already transited to another dimensional realm. So that was one experience when I was lucid enough to make an attempt to view my physical body sleeping in the bed. And again, it wasn't successful. My physical body wasn't even in the bed, and it should have been. So I had already exited to another dimensional reality. So in this out of body that occurred a few days ago, I became lucid to find myself in an unknown basement, and I knew it was a basement. And right away, I was concerned. I have had enough OBEs where it is a signal to me that if I'm in a basement area, for me to be careful. It is going to be, I'm going to be in a lower dimensional realm. It is just like in horror movies where scary things exist in the basements. So I have learned that that has been the case for me. Right away when I became lucid and I knew I was in a basement, I was on high alert. And that's a teaching point. Always listen to your instinct and your intuition, and during these out of bodies, if you need to be on high alert with your eyes open, ready to flee, that's what you need to do. Don't be foolish, don't be naive. And so I was on high alert. There was a door opening about 5 feet from me to my right. There was no door hinged on the door frame. It was just a simple door opening, standard size. And I knew I could make the decision to go through that door opening to another part of the basement, but I did not for my security. I was fearful of what I would find on the other side of the wall that I could not see. So what I did was and it was a simple basement area with an unfinished floor. There was no furniture. It just had dark walls. It seemed to be an empty room, clearly an empty like storage room, but there was nothing in it. I took this unusual action. I drew a circle with my finger on the floor around me, okay? And then I inscribed a pentagram, a 5-pointed star within the circle. I drew it like this with my finger, using my visualization and intentions. I have never done that in an out of body to protect myself. So I inscribed a pentagram within a circle all around me on the floor. It was a security measure. In the past, when I've been in precarious situations in other dimensional realms, I have tried different techniques to protect myself when I felt that I was going to be attacked. I have called Archangel Michael, the angel protectorate. I have repeated Jesus Christ's name a few times. These are techniques that I read about in out-of-body publications to do if you're in a precarious situation and feel your life might be in your astral life, your astral body might be in danger. And to be honest with you, these two techniques have not worked for me that I'm conscious of. I have read that if you invoke Jesus Christ's name, that his name is multidimensional, and everyone in the it carries through to all these dimensions, and these evil beings in these dimensions even recognize the power of that name. But I have to be honest with you, I don't feel confident in that as a protection technique. You can try that yourself. Maybe it'll work for you. It hasn't really seemed to work for me. Or if it has, it's after a few seconds where I'm actually physically attacked, or intruder actually jumps on me, etc. And to me, I would like it to work more effectively prior to such an attack. But in this instance, in this out of body, I did inscribe a pentagram in a circle around my form. So that is a teaching point. Do what you have to do to protect yourself in these auto bodies if you feel like your safety may be compromised. From the open doorway, a woman walks in, and she's in a black type of cloak. She's about 5'5", has fair skin and dark brown hair. She looks like she could be in her early 30s. I describe these details so you know how lucid I am. Right away, I am very trepidatious. I know that though she might appear to be normal and sane, she might not be, because I've had experience of out bodies where things turn very quickly. And she started talking to me. She was telling me this story that was a real life story. She said there was a man and that he had murdered a 6-year-old boy. And then she told me he was the landscaper. And then I actually received some sort of psychic download, and I received an image of him. And he was in his 30s or 40s, about 5'7", with brown wavy hair. He was a little overweight, not too much. And somehow she kind of morphed into him. And now this woman morphed into this murderer landscaper is approaching me and is about a foot away from me. And I realize she's in my inscribed circle of protection. And I tell her, you're in my circle of protection. And obviously it's not working because she was able to cross that boundary, that protective boundary. My inscribed pentagram in the circle did not seem to work in this out-of-body experience. Lesson learned. I will hopefully come up with another technique in the future if this happens again. And many times in out-of-bodies, it is an iterative process where you try different things to find what does work. That's part of the learning curve I'm hearing telepathically. So I learned that. I'm glad I learned that. At least I have that information for future out-of-bodies. And I had this feeling I could have attempted to cross this woman who morphed into the landscaper murderer. I could have tried to cross her over. What does that mean? In the beginning of my spiritual awakening in 2009, I was going through a period where I was crossing over disincarnate spirits during my out-of-bodies. I would become lucid in my out-of-bodies to find spirits who were people, and they had somehow missed that light tunnel upon physical death, and they weren't able to transition to their next level of growth. So they were kind of, I don't want to use the word limbo, but they were in a transitional state where they weren't in the place they were supposed to be because there was no light tunnel to transport them to. So in the first few years of my spiritual awakening, I was doing these spiritual crossovers where I would actually, during these OBEs, bring down a light tunnel. And I would say this invocation where I wish you the best. Here is like the light tunnel. I would invoke Archangel Michael many times to help them make the transition. And there's what was a few times when the spirits in these dimensions I was in during this out-of-body would actually go into this light tunnel. Sometimes appear like a spotlight and disappear. Sometimes they would lift up and just disappear. So I knew they were able to transport safely through the light tunnel, but they needed a facilitator to help them because these light tunnels are not, or these light portals are not available willy-nilly. So it appeared to me that one of my soul functions was to be a facilitator, and I learned to bring this special light portal down for these disincarnate spirits. And many times they were spirits I did not know personally, and they would just run to get into this tunnel, take this opportunity so they could exit to the next dimensional reality where they belong. So during this out of body I had a few days ago, I had the thought that I could bring down the light portal for her, for him, but I knew that this woman who morphed into the murderer, they weren't at the proper level of consciousness for the light portal to accept them. And that's the key. In order to utilize this light portal, these disincarnate spirits need to be at a minimum base vibration, because the light portal doesn't let anybody and everybody in. Just like how I haven't been able to get into the Shambhala dimensional realm because of my vibration as a security measure. These disincarnate spirits sometimes don't have the proper vibrational access to be in the light portal. And I just sense that this woman was not of the proper consciousness, so I did not even bother to bring down the light portal. That could have been an error on my part. I'm not sure. I just used my intuition, so I need to trust that I just didn't even intuitively feel she was ready. Then the out of body ended. Okay, so that was an example of an out of body where I went to a darker realm, and that was symbolized by the basement setting. So be aware during out of bodies, especially if you are in a basement type setting. I'm also hearing attic. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some horror movies where spirits and ghosts, dark spirits live in the attic and they hide in the attic. So it's very similar in out of bodies. Do exercise a proper care. I'm hearing telepathically to remind my viewers. The second out of body I had, which ended this morning at about 1:30 a.m., was another darker out of body. Now you might say to me or ask yourself, "Oh, Katibe, what are you doing? This does not sound like fun. This does not sound like I want to have out of bodies." These are my experiences. Yours may or may not be similar, but if they are, I hope I've given you some tidbits and some informational tips to help you. I learned I am an initiate. And I learned that in and out of body. A woman came right out and said, "You're an initiate." What's an initiate? An initiate is one who has committed to be on the path to their evolution, their highest evolution, to ascend to the higher realms. So I feel, and I even heard the word training, I'm in training, you're in training, that is part of my coursework to experience the spectrum of dimensional realities, from the darkness, the ghetto, to even more suburban, mainstream type dimensional realities. I've accepted that. I have been in both of those numerous times, and I know my spirit is the navigator. So I'm going to just leave it up to my spirit to decide where I should be and when during these out-of-body experiences. And obviously my spirit knows something that I consciously am not aware of. So there that goes. If you're on a similar path, if you're an initiate, focused and dedicated to your ascension path, you may have these same type of experiences where you are not just limited to being Elysium, or utopia, those highest level dimensions. You're actually shown and do, I'm hearing the word rotation, amongst all almost different types, a myriad of dimensional realities. When I do this, this means I'm getting information from beyond, okay, or from the universe. Could be it's telepathy, but it could be from my higher self or my group of high-level etheric guides that are part of my team to guide me. So the second out-of-body occurred this morning, and it was very similar. It was a darker realm But this one was a little different because it was in a dimensional frequency that is very close to the earthly plane. The reason why is the setting was actually the house that I currently live in. I fell asleep on the couch the evening prior, which I do from time to time, and I awoke, and I'm still sleeping, but I became lucid to hear sounds, and these sounds were coming from the pantry in my kitchen, and it was like a ruckus type sound, and that is what seemed to help promote my lucidity in this out of body. And right away I got nervous because I'm the only one in the house, and what could be that rustling, rough noises that I'm hearing from my pantry. And a man appears, an astral being, a human being. He looks like a normal human being. But again, this is a dimensional realm closest to one of the ones closer to the earthly realm, because the setting was my kitchen that I currently have. And right away, I'm nervous. He's a stranger and he's an intruder. And in this out of body, I ask myself, why didn't my alarm system go on? We have a house security alarm. Obviously, astral beings don't set off your physical house alarm. But I did ask myself that. I said, oh my gosh, my house alarm didn't pick up on this intruder, and he broke in. And I am very nervous. I am about 18 feet away from this male being. And then I look, and there's a small ball, a small round sphere about the size of a baseball, and it's kind of bouncing on my kitchen counter. Just bounce, bounce, bounce. And I get closer to it, and it's a pirate's head, but it's very small, and it's enclosed in you can say in a sphere or an orb. And I look at it and I said, where's your body? It was just the head. And I knew it was a pirate's head. I don't know how I knew it was a pirate's head. I don't even think it had, the iconic eye patch or the scarf that you see in pirates movies. I was just curious as to where the rest of his body was. It was just the head bouncing on my counter. But again, it was enclosed in a sphere, and it wasn't bloody or gory. And this is a teaching point. In out of bodies, you may experience phenomena that is highly unusual. These kind of events would never happen on the earthly plane, but they happen in out of bodies. Be prepared for the unusual and crazy. And then a few feet away, the male being was there. He looked like a normal human being. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have distortions on their head or spots of colors on their face. Their skin tone is uneven, and they'll actually have spots of color. One time I had an out of body where the male's head was totally lopped off on one side, like it was gone, and it was such an odd shape. So these are the type of beings you may encounter, especially in those dimensional realms closest to the earthly plane. That's why if you know that you're in a dimensional realm closest to the earthly plane, you should take due care. So this man was very close to me, and I am very nervous. I know he doesn't belong in my kitchen. He's kind of broken into my house, superseded my security measures. And this man is walking past a drawer in my kitchen, and in that drawer are my kitchen knives. And I was so afraid that he was just going to open the drawer and take a knife and, approach me violently. I said, oh gosh, hope he doesn't know that kitchen drawer has the kitchen knives in it. But in reality, that kitchen drawer did not have my kitchen utensils in it. It was another drawer. So another teaching point, there is some distortion even in the dimensional realities close to the earth, where things and item placement may not be in the same exact location. And then to my right, to my surprise, there was a kitchen drawer, and in it were forks. And in reality, my kitchen utensils are not stored in that drawer, but in this astral level dimension it was. And I took out a fork, and the man is very close to me now, and I do this thing, and I'm sorry to say I did it, but I did it. I was in fear. I was worried about my safety. I take the fork and I stab him 2 times on his side, okay, on his left side. And I say to myself, I'm only going to stab him, so he's just hurt. I'm not going to kill him. So I was trying to be aware and not be, not be a murderer. And the guy, he didn't seem to, the male didn't seem to flinch. He didn't seem to be in pain. And I was surprised, and it didn't even seem to stop him. And I had the thought that I could take deeper measures, more violent measures, but I didn't. And then he said something strange to me. He said something like, a year ago, I knew I would be here with you, and he goes, I know that I can't do anything violent against you. He said something like that. So in retrospect, I probably should have helped him transition. I should have tried to bring down that light portal I referred to earlier, and maybe he was looking for a crossing. But I did, and I wasn't lucid enough, and I apologize if that was supposed to be my role. But I am still scared. And so I run out of the house, and I say to myself, I need to go to a neighbor's and get help for myself. And so our next door neighbor's house, it was all lit up with lights, and they had a big picture window, and I could see 2 or 3 people sitting on a couch, like watching TV. In reality, my next door neighbor's house does not look anything like what I saw in this out of body, and they don't have this big, huge picture window that you could so clearly see the inhabitants in. And so I do this thing where I go and knock on the glass window and I say, help, help, I need help. And this male being that was in my kitchen, the one that I was running away from, he appears in the interior of my neighbor's house. And then my 2 or 3 neighbors that were in their living room, they say to him, like, hi, Tom. They said his name, they knew him. And they said, oh, and then I realized, like, he was their landscaper. He knows them. He has a relationship with them. And I was kind of confused. And then I start to, and I wondered if my neighbors knew that he had a dark side. And then I start to run away. And then the loose out of body stops. I know some people would say, these are just your fears from your earthly life. You must have some issues. You must have some fears. But I have to be honest with you, I didn't. The day prior to these out of bodies, very normal day. I didn't have any anxiety. I didn't have any worries for my personal safety. So it wasn't that type of carryover to this out of body. What I feel is I went to another dimensional realm where, and I interacted with other dimensional beings that really had nothing to do with my physical earthly life. Just to experience it, just to learn, just for the experience of it all, for my soul's expansion. So that's it. Those are the 2 out of bodies that I chronicled for you, 2 darker dimensions. I've had other out of bodies which were beautiful, amazing, mystical, where I've interacted with my grandparents in spirit. So don't base your conceptions of OBEs on these 2 OBEs that I shared today. They have run the gamut, but I do like to provide a complete, let's say, analysis so that you know what to expect if you do have out of bodies yourself. And again, this is going to vary, and I'm hearing it telepathically, depending on each individual's experience, their blueprint, their soul function, what they're meant to do in their lives, etc. Okay, I would love to read your comments, relevant comments. Please post them below. I would love to hear any of your experiences when you went to darker dimensions and what you did and how you handled your personal security, so I could learn and maybe get some ideas for next time. Okay, I wish you all well. Namaste.